Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of the podcast. Basically, today we've got on Jeff Thompson, who's a really well-known martial artist, and he's written a lot of books around fear and aggression and training. So yeah, looking forward to having him on. Let's get him on. Jeff, how's it going? Sorry, 2 seconds, mate. Let me just turn the volume up. Can you hear me okay?
I can, yeah.
Perfect. I've got you as well. Awesome. Sorry to keep you waiting, mate. The Wi-Fi is a little bit dodgy in this building, so it's a bit temperamental at times, especially at the moment when everyone's staying at home.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of traffic, isn't there?
Yeah. How have you been anyway? It's really good to finally meet you, mate. I'm sorry it's taken so long for us to connect and everything.
We're here now. That's the main thing.
Yeah, brilliant. How you been? How
Good.
you keeping?
Very good. Yeah, very good. Yeah, busy time. How about you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Just kind of forced me to take things in a little different direction. I'm a
Yeah,
personal trainer usually by trade, so obviously with the gym setting, we just had to find a slightly alternative way of getting it done. But it forced me to try things that I wouldn't have done before, which has been really good.
it's got to be good, hasn't it?
Brilliant. Cool. Oh, mate, I've been really looking forward to this conversation for quite a long time. Obviously, you've got your book here. How's that all
Brilliant.
been going?
It's been really good. I've probably done about, I don't know, over 30 interviews now. So it's been pretty busy.
Oh, amazing. I saw you one with Brian on London Real.
Yeah,
How was that? I bet that was cool.
that was really good. I've done three with him now. So that was my third one. But I love Brian. So he always looks after me. I've just done one with James English as well.
Okay.
Which is coming out on Wednesday. He's very similar to Brian's got a very big following.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I really appreciate your time, Jeff. Like, I'm still very little at the moment. But the thing that I think is it's really interesting sharing all the information that you've been talking about, all the things that you kind of go through. So honestly, like, I appreciate you giving me your time and coming on.
Pleasure, John. Can you pass the details on any any things you need to promote it to my manager at the Instagram, Gabriella? I don't know if you've got her email.
Yeah, I think. Well, I've got her on Instagram message.
Yeah,
I can just drop her a message,
yeah.
maybe.
So once it's ready, I don't need to see it. Just if you can just pass it on to Gabriella and just any links you want or any clips that you're going to use, anything, so we can promote it on our Instagram page as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's in the pipeline for you next then? Obviously, you've written the book. Have you got
Yeah,
anything
yeah. I've got two
now?
books out at the moment. I've got this one. I've got the one with the called The Divine CEO. And I'm talking to some people in America about another film at the moment. Just pitched them a treatment, so that looks like that's going to go ahead. Um, we've got. I think I'm going to be doing a live stream evening with at the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry in December. It's supposed to be November, but got moved over because of COVID. So, yeah, so I'm promoting these two books. I've got another book called 99 Reasons to Forgive. Got this film idea that I'm playing with this American company. Yeah, so pretty busy. Yeah,
Times.
it's like Heathrow. My head is like Heathrow. I've got things stacking to land, things landing, things taxiing, things taking off.
How do you manage all of that stuff then, Jeff? That's what I'm kind of interested about as well. Like, how do you kind of deal with all the ideas that are coming in and out?
I mean, is it? Are we recording now?
Is that all right? Hold on, let me just.
Yeah, yeah. We might as well. Have
Yeah,
you started
I just wanted to check with you first, mate, and then all right, cool.
recording? Because otherwise, what happens is we talk too much before and we miss loads of the bit. We might as well just get it straight onto record if that's okay, John. Where
Right.
are you? London.
No, I'm down south, so I'm in. Do you know where Bournemouth is?
Yeah.
So I'm down south by Bournemouth. Yeah, so I'm quite lucky to be honest, because obviously we've got all the beaches and stuff that we can wander around. How about yourself? Are you based up?
I'm in Coventry at the moment, just about
Yeah.
to move. We're going to be moving up to Stratford soon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Nice.
process of doing that.
Brilliant. Cool. All right, mate. Well, if you're happy to just
Mm,
start having a chat and stuff, then that would be awesome.
yeah.
So I guess first things first, like there's a couple of things that I wanted to really pick your brains on. Obviously the first question being like, how would you deal with all your ideas that are coming in and out and see them through to fruition sort of thing? And then there was a lot of questions I had about fear. And then I also wanted to kind of like go into the book a little bit and speak to you about, I guess, how you managed to start your journey from where you were to where you are now, and your kind of belief systems and stuff that you put into place.
Yeah.
I think that's probably, I found that so interesting because there's so many people that I speak to as well that get stuck in this sort of like almost a glass ceiling where they don't know how to get past it, or they think that's where their life's at. And I think it ties in so many relevant areas of life. So yeah, I mean, I'm just happy to sit here and listen and absorb knowledge, mate, if that's okay.
Yeah, well, I think talking about ideas, what I realised is that my ideas are intuitive. I'm not really a writer for hire, and I'm not really a writer. I'm just a person that's trying to go home. I'm trying to find my own singularity, my own geometric point. And writing is my method of prayer. It's my method of connecting to the divine soul. So when an idea comes to me, if you imagine that God is an absolute, or the universe is an absolute, and obviously it can't come through this tiny vessel, so it has to be reduced in order to come through me. So in Judaism, they call this simsum. It means condensation. It means to be reduced. So we can't get this vast energy of our nature through this tiny vessel. So what it does is it reduces itself to a seed, and that seed has to be brought out and unpacked, and the whole of everything was within that seed. So that's what happens to me with ideas. An idea will come to me as an inspiration, as a wisdom, as a seed, and then my job is to have the courage to sit down and unpack it. And that might be a 6-week first draft of a film, or it might be a year-long project, or it might like some of the stuff I'm unpacking. For instance, I wrote Watch My Back 30 years ago. That was a seed of an idea. I'm still unpacking that. The film I've just done with Orlando Bloom in America, which is getting great reviews, was a story from that book that I wrote 30 years ago. So that little tiny seed of an idea that some people unkindly said, it's just a book about a bouncer. Who's going to be interested? It's not a book about a bouncer. It's about a depressed man, a frightened man who's looking for his purpose. So it was my search for meaning. So the idea is that once you've got this seed, it continually unpacks, and each seed creates, say for instance, it creates, say for instance, Watch My Back is a seed, and it creates a book. But that book also has got other seeds, like an oak tree. An oak tree comes from a tiny seed, but in its lifetime, it'll create another 1,000,000 acorns with another 1,000,000 seeds, which will also have the potential to create another 1,000,000 trees ad infinitum. So, the book became a play. It became a feature film. It became a short film with Ray Winston. It triggered a BAFTA-winning film with Ronnie Fox about alcoholism. It's because it became 30 years after I wrote it, it became a film about forgiveness with Orlando Bloom. So it's constantly unpacking. What I realized is that for me to receive these intuitions, I need to be still, I need to be quiet, and I need to get rid of the bullshit. I need to get rid of the ambition, the greed, the envy, all of that stuff distracts you. When you're in the ego mode, it's like, I want to make money, I want to have lots of followers, I want accolades, I want recognition, all of those things, as good as they can be, and it can be used, but it stops the flow of creative intuition, because creative intuition doesn't really give a monkeys what you think. Creative intuition is saying, are you available? Because I'm going to drive by like a fast muse, and if you're available, I'll come through you. If not, I'll go to somebody that's ready. So the muse will say, this is the idea, and if you sit still and be a vessel, I'll come through you. I will write myself. And your job will just be to cross the T's and dot the I's. So you're the delivery service for it, but it knows how it wants to be. It knows where it wants to go. It knows the life. It knows its ordination. It knows each project has its own dharma, and our job is to facilitate that and deliver it, and not try to force it into holes it doesn't want to go in. So if I start by thinking I've got to win a BAFTA or I've got to win an Oscar, automatically I'll block the creative process because the ego's taken over. But if I allow myself to be open to any idea, and the idea will come down as a seed, and then I've got to have the discipline to remove all of those aberrations and let the project come through on its own. And then once it's out, if I write a book or write a film, my job is still to push. You know, if the film wants to go in certain places, I'm doing my best to put it there. So I do everything possible, and then all the impossible stuff, I let the film do itself. So we did Romans 3 years ago, and I had great ambitions for it because I could feel it was rich, and then it just disappeared, and nothing happened with it. But I'd done everything I could do. The producers and directors did everything they could do. And then 3 years later, they've re-released it in America under another name, and it's suddenly, getting the best reviews of Orlando's life. So the film, as long as I've done everything I can do. So my life is like Heathrow, as I said to you before the interview. I've got ideas stacking, ready to land. I've got ideas landing and taxiing. I've got ideas taking off. So I don't tend to work on more than one idea at the time, but if I'm sitting with the script, for instance, which I will be in the next week or so, I'll dedicate 6 weeks. I won't let anything get in my way. I'll switch the phone off while I'm writing, and I'll just write the first draft. The first draft is really important because if we don't get it down, it may be lost. There are lots of adverse forces that will try to stop the creative output. So for me, it's recognizing that intuition is waiting for an open vessel. It's waiting for somebody that has enough control of their structure that it isn't going to be taken over by the ego, because loads of projects can be battered and ruined because an ego goes, oh, this is really good. We could make a lot of money. We could win lots of awards with this. And then it just gets corrupted. So what the film says is, I'm going to come through you and you're going to deliver me, and I'll tell you exactly where to go. I'll tell you when to push. I'll tell you when to yield. I'll tell you when to say yes and when to say no. I'll tell you who to attract and who to avoid. And we kind of follow this divine sat nav. So I've got rid of everything in my life that blocks that. I've made myself a willing and open vessel. But that's difficult because to do that, you have to go through, for me personally, I've had to go through a very severe series of regenerations, series of repentance. Repentance means to return to the center. Yeah. It means to find homeostasis. It means to find home. So in the center, in homeostasis, I am an open vessel for any creative outlet, and I can create stuff at the level of anybody else in history if I'm able to be open to that. But to get to that place, I have to get rid of the corruptions, like I said, like the loud ambitions, the greedy need for money, the greedy need for validation, this kind of urge for more followers, all that kind of stuff. All of that, I've had to get rid of all that. I've had to simplify my life so that practically I don't need to make money, just by living very, very simply. And when I do that and get rid of all of those egoic tendencies, which obviously are always trying to break back in again, it means I'm an open vessel. I can deliver a film, and I can say this pyramid text, for instance, just dropped into my head. And I can tell you that it's a beautiful film. It's world class. It's an Oscar level performance by James Cosmo. And I can tell you that objectively because it's not mine. It did come through me. It did pick my flavors up and it picked my stories, but it's not mine. I can't write that good. I haven't got that ability, but I do have the ability to discipline myself and sit down and do the work. And it's red hot, John. When stuff comes through, it is red hot. You have to have a will like tungsten to be able to absorb that creative glow. You have to let it through. So that's what I do. I've just recognized that this is available to me at the moment. It's available to anybody if they orchestrate their life in the correct way. But I know it's available to me, and I know I have the discipline because of my martial arts background to sit down, to study, to cleanse, to prepare myself so that I can deliver a talk, or that I can write a script, or that I can write a book, or I can write, like a TED talk, 14 minutes, a lifetime in a 14-minute synopsis. That's my TED talk is a 14-minute version of my life. It takes tremendous discipline to sit down and do that. And it's very difficult to have all that if you're full of other things. And when I say ambitions, I'm just talking about ambitions. I'm talking about the separate personalities within us that have those ambitions. One of us wants accolade. One of us wants money. One of us wants the pretty girl on her arm. One of us wants to be adored. One of us wants followers. One of us wants to just fucking eat and drink. One of us wants to be lazy. One of us doesn't really care too much. One of us wants to kill people because we're so angry. So we have to subjugate all of those disparate characters so that we are just singular. We're just one, so that we know who we are. And that's the process for me of creativity. So it is much more spiritual and metaphysical than it is even creative. And those films and those things, they may go off and win accolades. They may attract money. They may, I may get adoring fans, but that's not the purpose of it. And those things are dangerous to me. They're not things I'm looking for. Even though there's part of me, of course, there's part of me that is attracted to that because it's the shiny keys, isn't it? You know what I mean? but I tend to boot that stuff away because it corrupts my process, and I'm only interested in the process.
Jeff, that's just given me so many more questions and so many answers at the same time. You touched on stillness. Sorry, I'm just going to be making notes, mate, whilst you're talking about certain things.
Yeah.
So I'm going through Ryan Holiday's book at the moment about stillness is the key. I don't know if he does a lot of stuff with the Stoic philosophy.
Who's this?
Ryan Holiday.
Oh yes, I've seen Ryan Holiday stuff. He's good guy.
And it goes through sort of similar sorts of things. Like you need to be able to still yourself and step away from all the influx of everyday life coming in to be able to get that creative process going. And it's really interesting what you were saying, because thinking like the abundance mindset, and it's really interesting knowing that you're able to just step back and not worry. Because my initial thought was, but how do you pay your bills, or how do you not worry about what's going on? And then it's like, okay, well, when you take a step back and you look at it from your perspective, which is it will happen if it's going to happen, or if it's meant to happen, I've just got to trust that.
At the beginning as well, John, you may have to facilitate your art until your art can facilitate you. Most of us know that we can reduce our footprint, and we can get rid of, I had a fancy flat in London, and I had 3 properties. I was, it's very difficult for me to be fully 100% creative while I've got 3 mortgages to pay.
Yeah.
Because I've got to bring the dollar in. And one of my projects might be a $5,000 love job where I don't get paid. I mean, Pyramid Text, I didn't get paid. Bouncer, BAFTA nominated, I didn't get paid. Brown Paper Bag, won a BAFTA, I didn't get paid. Most of my stuff I just write spontaneous on spec. So in order to compensate for that, at the beginning, I did have to do things to facilitate my art until it facilitated me. I'm not naive. We do have to live, but I don't have to drive a fancy car. I don't need an expensive watch, and I don't need a posh flat in London. Those things are nice if they are the exponential effect. They're not good if you put them before the creative process. Yeah. This is why a lot of people are lured from the creative path, because they get those things, and those things demand to be fed. And if you suddenly presented with a job which may be the best thing you ever do, like James Cosmo did, the Pyramid Text, And he said he's been in the business for 60 years. He said it's the best project of his entire life. He never expects to exceed it. That film cost him money, and he so wanted to do it because he knew his signature was in that. So if you've got lots of bills to pay, it's very difficult to be able to go, yeah, I'm going to put 6 weeks aside to do that. So in the beginning, you facilitate your art in any way you can. But at some point, when you recognize the process, you reduce your need to make money. You reduce your need. We don't need very many things. We need, we need a roof over our head, and we need to eat and drink. Over and above that, we don't need loads of things. And it's took me a long time to find that. But once you do get it, then you go, okay, I'm going to deconstruct this. Because really, I'm just interested in I'm interested in the song. I'm interested in the love that the song came from. That's all I'm interested in, because that's what completes me or sates me. So at the beginning, you may have to go through that process of going, yeah, I've got to do this job because I've got to make a living. But once you get to a point of certainty, John, you will attract what they call Dharma protectors. And you get 2 Dharma protectors. These are very real. I'm always wary about saying this because I'm quite aware of how it sounds. But you get these beings that will be with you, and they will protect you, and they will also provide for you. You know what I mean? So once you get to a level of certainty where this creative force knows that you are a willing and surrendered vessel, it will take care of your bills. It will bring you the money you need, sometimes from unexpected places, sometimes at the 11th hour, and it will bring what you need. It won't bring more than you need, but it will bring what you need. So at a certain level, you get Dharma protectors who provide for what you need. But if I've got 3 properties and I only need 1, it's not going to provide for 3 properties. It's going to say, you need to play your part in this. And your part is to look at what is superfluous. You understand this because you're a fitness trainer. I look at your body. I can see even from here that you're lean. There's nothing on your body that shouldn't be there. It's lean. You've got rid of anything superfluous. So you can use the same thing. Your training's the same. You don't go in the gym and play around. You'll be a serious player that will go in, that will find the burn quickly and stay in the burn long, because you know where the growth is. Creatively, it's exactly the same. But what we do in life is we have lots of fat and lots of ostentation packed around something that we call lean. We call ourselves creative. We might even put a tattoo on our arm that says, creative master or script master or something silly, but it doesn't really mean anything. Because to strip yourself down to the bare metal is to go, all I want to do is this creative stuff. So I'm gonna make my footprint as small as possible so that I can just create. So then that financial freedom allows you to be innovatively free, to quote Turner. So you may have to facilitate it in the beginning, but once you recognize if it's genuinely just about the creative process, and it's not about accumulating followers, and it's not about accumulating money, and it's not about accumulating wealth and property. Once you know it's not about that, and that they may be things that you'll have to get out of the way. You may have to go through all of that and get it out of the way. But once you know it's not about that, then, and you strip it down, all of your finances, everything will be looked after. This creative energy, God, the universe, the Brahman, it will bring through and deliver everything you need. Very difficult to explain to your wife that I know the mortgage is due on Saturday, but it will come because God has promised me. And she's got, if your partners and the people around you aren't exactly on the same page, it can be very testing for them. But our job, like I said, if we can reduce our need to make money, all of the money I needed for my films and everything else, it just comes so simply, so miraculously. And the films that weren't meant, I couldn't getting money out of people was like getting blood out of a stone.
Yeah.
I sat with a friend called Mike Morris, and I was talking to him about a couple of, I was teaching actually, and I was talking about why I wanted to do these couple of films that I got coming up, and what I was going to do with them, and how I was going to put them out there, and they were going to land and be intercessors for people and help people. And after I finished talking, we was having a cup of tea. He said, "What are these two films then, Jeff?" And I said, "Oh, it's this and this." And within a conversation, he gave me 50 grand.
Wow.
And said, "Go and make them." And we did. We made one for I think one for they gave me 45 grand. So one for 25 and one for 20. Actually, the short film, which is coming out on Omeletto, I think next week, cost more than the feature film. Yeah. But that came simply, and it came in a conversation because he felt the call of spirit, he felt inspiration, and he just handed the money over. He's a guy that patronizes a lot of my work. I've got another friend called Warner who does exactly the same. If he feels the intuition, he'll just say, "Can I be involved in that?" Which means, "Can I give you some money?" And then the money, like with those two films, I didn't get any pay for either of them, but I didn't need the money for them, and there wasn't enough money to pay me. The directors didn't get paid either. The actor didn't get paid. It just really paid for the crew to come together and make it. But we knew that there was something special, and that the reward would be much bigger than that. And our means were met in other ways. It takes a tremendous amount of faith to do that. Yeah. Because it does, like I said, it does tend to come sometimes at the last hour, or in a conversation that you're having, and somebody just suddenly gives you the money. So at the lowest level, we're talking about you may have to go. You're still a young guy. How old are you?
27, mate. 27.
Yeah, so you're a young guy. So you may have to tick all those boxes. You may have to get the fast car, and you may have to get the curvy blonde and or the muscular guy. I don't know, whichever way it goes. But you may have to get the gorgeous partner. You may have to get the posh flat or the big house or whatever. You may have to go through that in order to exhaust it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you can get it earlier and you can get into the creative process quicker, the artists are the best, the painters, because they just bury themselves away in an old farm building somewhere and just paint. They orchestrate their life so they can just do that. So you may have to get those things out of the way. So please don't let me disturb you by saying those things are wrong. They're not wrong. I did all of those things. But the moment I saw that they were getting in my way, I ditched them. I got rid of them. But I had to get to a real high level in my own development before I could clearly see that. So all of those things in themselves aren't wrong. They are feeding a part of you that at some point you will have to, if you want to fully immerse yourself into the creative process, at some point you'll have to ditch all that. And like I said, often when we do that, the films we do make a lot of money, and they do all of those things. It's not that they can't be both, but if you put the money and the fame and the accolades before the creative process, you're in trouble. It never worked for me. All my best products, all my best projects, all of the projects that have been acclaimed and that have done really well, have all been just spontaneous things that I've written for nothing, or that I've gone to somebody and the money's come quite easy because it's because it's just something I'm going to write or do anyway. But that's where you will end up.
It's really interesting. So again, with PTing and fitness and everything like that, for a long, long time, the whole industry was saturated by people that were just trying to be fitness models or influencers, and there's not really anything of value or education that was being put out. And I read this really interesting quote the other day, I can't remember where it was, but it was basically focused on being a person of value that's going to provide education, whether or not it's just for the sake of doing it. So people might come across and they might take something away, or they might not, but you're still just creating a platform where you're educating or trying to educate people, and naturally people are attracted to stuff that they find useful, right? So they'll start coming looking at things. But again, if you're always focusing on the followers or the likes or the engagement rates, you're never gonna be happy or be in a place where you feel like you're providing something purposeful.
You stop thinking about who you're serving.
Exactly.
It's gone from being selfless to selfish.
Yeah.
It's gone from being on the right-hand tree of the tree of life, which is to receive in order to share, to the left-hand side, which is to receive for the self alone.
Sorry, say that again. Tree of life.
On the tree of life, the Kabbalic tree of life, the tree of life is the correct tree. That's the tree where we receive abundance in order to share it with others. The tree of good and bad, or the tree of good and evil, is the narcissistic tree, where we draw down for the self alone, but it never sates us. We may get stuff, but it never satisfies us. So the key is to find somebody that's more in need than you are, and draw down the abundance to serve them. Like, for instance, we're doing this video now, and it will serve you and it will serve me. But for this really to work, it needs to go out. It won't, what you learn from this won't be completed until it goes out, until you share it with people.
Yeah.
Just for you, it's going to be reduced, and what you get from it will be reduced. When you genuinely want to share it with people, when you genuinely think, like I do, there are kids out there now who are suffering, they're depressed, they're suicidal. You know, they don't know how to get out. I mean, the first thing you said to me, there are people that don't know how to get out. That's it. That's the key to all of it, John. That's everything.
Yeah.
We want to help those people. And the best way to help ourselves and to serve the omniscient or the omnipotent or the omnipresent, the best way to serve the absolute is to find people that are in need and give them information that is didactic, they can actually go. Like, if you look at Romans, my film that we did, Retaliation, it's a didactic film. It's a film with instruction. It's not laid out. It isn't like lesson one, but you can go into that and come away and go, oh, this is what I can do. My stage play, Fragile, is didactic. You read it, you watch the play, or you read the book, and it tells the story, but within the story, there are lessons and things to do. Notes from a Factory Floor is didactic. It's not meant to be didactic, but it is.
Yeah.
Because it's a story with truth, and it's saying, this is what I did to get myself from there to here. And people will go, oh, I'm going to try that. And I read Arnold Schwarzenegger's biography.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, and just thought, I'm going to make my book a bestseller. Because he did it. He took a fitness book on the road and basically sold it from the boot of his car and got it onto the New York Times bestseller list. And I was so inspired by the didactic nature, the teaching nature of what he was doing, that I set up a 32-city tour and got my book onto the Sunday Times bestseller list. Yeah. Went all around the country. It was incredible. But the book what didn't aim to be didactic, but it was. So what we're doing here, it will, for this talk to have the most benefit, it's got to be shared, and the intention has got to be to share it. And the moment we start thinking about what's in this for me, we reduce it again. Because if I reduce it to what's in it for me, I'm just one guy on the side of the bank with one fishing rod and a hook, trying to feed myself. If I actually genuinely want to feed lots of people, then I'm going to be a guy with a super rod with 5 lines, or I'm going to have a little boat with 6 lines, or I'm going to have a trailer with nets, and I'm going to go into deep waters, because I've got a lot of people back home I want to feed, you know. And if I'm really smart, this is the highest level of Maimonides' 13 aspects of service. The highest level of service is to teach people how to do that for themselves, from a genuine place, not from a place of how can I make profit from this, and how can I make money from this, or how can I get the best of, you know, what can I get from these? You teach other people, so you can teach other people to become coaches. I remember a guy saying to me, you're making a mistake with your teaching. He said, all of you've got some world-class teachers. They should all be paying you a percentage of what you're earning. And I just said, but you don't understand. I said, these guys love me. I said, these guys can't teach without talking about me, because they love me, because they know I've always taught them. I have this small group of private students who are trained for nothing, the private class. It wasn't a commercial class. I said, and they can't teach without talking about me because they love me. I said, these guys are paying me back every single time they teach. They're paying me back because they're centered. Now, again, I'm not having a go at people that set up those schemes. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is the moment it just becomes about the money, we disconnect from love. So what we try to do is, my teachers aren't competing against me. I've got great teachers, but how can they compete against me, John? I'm Jeff Thompson. Then you've got Matty Evans, or you've got Tony Summers, or you've got Alan Peasland. How can they compete against me? How can I compete against them? They are individual singularities. And if they're working from their own unique, their own bespoke geometric point, their beginning point, who they actually are, nobody in the world can compete with them because they're authentic.
Yeah.
So you can train people to be teachers, and if they need to go out or they feel they want to go out and work on their own, that can only benefit you. It might, from a business perspective, it might feel like it threatens you, but it actually can only benefit you, especially if you do it in a way that they've got your blessing, because they're never ever going to forget you. And of course, if they're teaching something that's specific to you, people are always going to want to come back to the source anyway.
Yeah.
But, we are the source. So the idea is that the making of money and all that other stuff, nothing wrong with it. But if we put it before the creative process, if we just want to make money, that's fine. We can go out and do that. We know how to do that. We know how to make that shape. We know what it is. But money's an energy, it's spirit. It's got energy in it. It is full of living spirit. And I'm talking literally. So once you've got money, once you've got buildings and accommodations and all of these different things, a car and all the rest of it, those things need to be fed. They need to be working. They are creative energies that need to be working. You can't just have it and then sit on it. It goes stale if we do that. So there's a massive responsibility with anything that we accumulate. So the idea for me is to bring it in and release it as quickly as possible, so it doesn't become caustic to me, because these energies are very, very rich. They all come from exactly the same place. They may come through different filters. I can bring a clean energy through a dark filter and it will look dark in the world. But that's my process of cleaning my filters. You might bring exactly the same energy through a clean filter and make something beautiful with it. So the idea is that we put things out into the world that are going to benefit everybody.
Yeah.
That includes us. But at the age of 27, you can probably still be thinking about, accumulating things, and that's part of that process. But the sooner you can get back past that, the good time to try and accumulate money, like Maharishi Yogi, who wanted to spread transcendental meditation around the world, and his friend said to him, "That's going to take a lot of money. Where are you going to get the money from?" He said, "I'm going to get the money from wherever it is now. I'll find out where the money is now, and I will." But his intention was to find the money or to attract the money in order to spread the word of something that he knew was going to benefit mankind. He wasn't bothered about an accumulation of wealth himself. He was a guy that would just be a vessel for the wealth, so that TM is still strong now, still going strong. It's still expanding in the world.
The more I read, the more I keep hearing this sort of thing coming up, which is about the fact that we are just vessels for, like, the universe. Obviously, it's its own thing, and we're just there to channel certain projects. It's like I was reading a book the other day, which was Science of Being Rich and Science of Being Great, by William Wattles, something like that. Anyway, but they talk about, like, wealth's not a bad thing, but it's not the only thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's nothing wrong with that, but you want to focus on it being for everybody. Like, you're there just to, like, everybody's got a piece of it. There's more than enough in the universe for everybody to have what they want. So having that, again, that mindset allows you to focus in on just, because I think that's the problem, isn't it? When people focus just on being rich and just on money, it draws you away from that uncorrupted sort of way of living, is being thoughtful for other people or being considerate, and it turns you into this slightly slightly bitter, jealous
Yeah.
It's always looking over at what the other person's doing, how much money are they making, rather than just focusing on what you're doing
Yeah.
and driving towards what you want to create.
And there's not enough, is there? There's not enough. There isn't. Once you're working from a selfish place, there's not enough money.
Yeah.
And I've had friends who don't want to spend £1 on a cup of tea, even though they've got £250,000 in the bank.
Yeah.
Because they're constantly frightened of, chipping into their reserves. I had a friend who we went round to see them. This is many years ago when I was younger, and it was in the 80s when these new chest freezers came out. He rushed us in to show us this chest freezer. It was full of food, and 5 minutes before she said, "I'm sorry, I can't offer you nothing to eat. We've got no food in." And I said, "I thought you didn't have any food in." She said, "Oh, well, I can't use this." I was like, "I've got to keep this. This is just for show. I've got a chest freezer full of frozen food, but I can't touch that." That's how people do with their bank accounts. That's how people do with their accumulation, with their accolades. Believe me, they are tact. All of it is tact when you compare it to the kindness of human beings. Once you start to realize it's about kindness and it's about service and how that is a very real energy that works through you and sates you, you won't want to hold on to any of that stuff. Just be the posh watch will just be a dead weight on your arm. You know what I mean? And the fast car will just be shiny wheels. That every single job on it costs £500. And you've suddenly got to start to compromise what you're doing in order to keep that going. And people think that a certain amount of wealth could bring them security, but it won't. The stock market can wipe out 100 million like that.
Yeah.
It can wipe out 1 billion like that. It can be gone. That's the nature of it.
The interesting alternative on that is if you have the fast car because you genuinely get the joy out of driving it. Do you know what I mean? What's your kind of perspective on that? So you don't have it because you want it to show off to anybody. You don't have it for any other reason apart from the fact that's something that you just get so much joy out of driving. But like, you say if you're going for a walk in a beautiful area, that's your thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, Ushi, the guru Ushi, I can't remember. Anyway, he said every man should have a Rolls Royce because you can see God better from a Rolls Royce. And what he meant was that have it and get in it, because once you're in it, you'll know that's not it. You'll know that's not it. Believe me, like I said, that it's the simple things. All of those things are good for the ego. They're a good thrill. In and of themselves, they won't give you what it is you're looking for. Eventually, anything and everything can give you what you're looking for, but it'll be the simple things. It'll be the tiny things. On my wedding anniversary recently, we walked up a local park, and we had a flask of coffee and a cake between us, and it was just bliss. My wife keeps talking about now. And I've stopped in posh hotels. I've gone around the world. Lived in London for quite a long time. I've had, accumulated a lot of things, and it's those real simple things. If I'm lying in bed watching telly at night, and my wife is lying into me, and I'm combing my fingers through her hair, which I do every night before we go to sleep, it's never going to get better for me than that. When I went to the BAFTAs, it was good fun, and when I've done all of these kind of award parties and when we was in Edinburgh, it was just like at the Edinburgh Festival, we won the best actor there for one of our films. And, it was full of stars, but all I wanted to do was go and find somewhere to get a bag of chips and have a cup of tea. Just really simple things. Interesting story, because I was there, I'd met Jason Connery, who's a director and a director and actor. His father's Sean Connery, who died unfortunately very recently.
Okay.
I've become good friends with him. And we were at this, we'd had this big screening, and we were at the party, and everyone was smoozing. And I'm just thinking, this is not where I want to be. I'm not interested in networking. I'm not interested in doing this. I've seen all this. I just really want to grab a cup of tea somewhere. And Jason said to me, I'd only just met him a few times, and we were becoming good friends. He said, if you can hang around for a little bit, Jeff, I've just got a bit of smoozing to do. And then we can get together and have a proper chat. I said, oh, no, I really appreciate it. I said, but I'm gone. I said, you know, I said, you carry on and I'll catch you another time. I said, but we're just going to find somewhere to go and have something to eat and just settle down. He goes, oh, I said, I'm going to have a cup of tea and a bag of chips. And he said, oh, he said, give me 5 minutes. Anyway, him and his girlfriend joined us. We went and had this really lovely meal. There was about 10 of us. We went and had this really lovely meal with a proper cup of tea. It was really nice, but it was simple. And the partying was next door. But when I was looking at the partying, it was just full of people trying to cocktail, full of people trying to mingle, full of people trying to network. And it's just not where I want to be.
Yeah.
I've done all that as well, and I just don't like it. So I prefer the divine networking. The divine networking is when the universe puts me in front of the right people at the right time. And it might be somebody that's known, it might be someone that's completely anonymous. And I'll just follow that intuition. So it's, it's the simple things. Again, you know, have the car and see how long that lasts. It won't last long because it pulls you out of the center. Again, like I said, there's nothing wrong with it. You may get some joy from it, but I would just say eventually you're going to find all of it a weight. All of it's going to be heavy on you because it needs to be maintained. You're going to need to do certain things to keep that, even if you own the car. I had an XKR for a while, and just to fix the brakes was £200 or £300. To change the wheel was £500. You know, it was, and you know, to some people that's not a lot of money, but it's still something that has to be met. And like we said, if you're very rich, that's not a lot of money. But that even if you're very rich, that money can disappear overnight. Just with the turning wheel of fate, you know. I mean, that's my mum is Boethius talked about the turning wheel of fate. He said, you know, 1 minute you can be really up, the next minute you can be completely down. So the universe is constantly putting us in a position where we are restricted and we're forced to look at what we've got. So what I would say about the cars and all that kind of stuff is go and do all that and get through it. You know, it will either trap you there like a prison cell, or you'll enjoy it and then let it go again, because there'll be other things. You know, once you start to feel the true creative process, once you start to feel like you won't want anything else. So the car and all that is like carbs, but the creative stuff is like the protein. You know what I mean? All that.
Yeah.
You know, when you're good in the training, you kind of get rid of all of the negative food, and you just come down to the, you know, to the really functional stuff that helps you to grow. So in terms of bodybuilding, that would be the carbs and the sugars that you don't want. And the creative stuff would be the protein. So at some point, if you really want to rip in the spiritual sense, in the creative sense, all of that stuff will go, because you'll just think, you know, that's another film I could have done. And that's, you know, that would have I could have paid my house off with that. And so I've got no mortgage, so I can just sit here and just create, just keep creating.
I guess
that's when you're at your optimal.
Taken away the next day, it's like, could you still be happy living your life, doing what you're doing? Do you know what I mean? It's like it's the whole principle, isn't it?
What happens is, John, is if you have too much adornment, if you have too much ostentation around you, it doesn't allow the spirit to develop. So people often, you know, I often see people getting tongue rings, earrings, tattoos, to try and be authentic. And all I used to think, and I've tried all that myself, but all I always think is, if you get rid of the ostentation and you are congruent, so there's just the one person, just the one personality, just the one, you know, the one congruent self, it will be so unique and it will shine so much and it will be so beautiful that you are automatically an individual. And you can be so individual that you know, you might be invisible in a crowd. People might not know who you are, you know, but if you sit in a room and you're quiet, people in the room will be healed because you're there, even if they don't know you. People in the room will be inspired because you're there, even if they don't know you. They'll have aspirations. Things will trigger in them because they're in your proximity. And that's not because of you, it's because of what you're connected to. So they will be like little bolts of electricity that will jump on and off your proximity. So the uniqueness isn't an external thing, it's an internal thing. And in order to get to the internal thing, we have to reduce, you know, as Gandhi said to me once in a meditation, you need to make yourself small. So we need to make the ego small in order to allow full expansion of our soul, full expansion of our consciousness. Nothing in and of itself is right or wrong. It's all just the same energy put through different filters made into different things. But if it keeps you away from your authentic center, like we talk about Dorian Yates, what I love about Dorian, he's a friend of mine, is that when he goes in the gym, he doesn't, there's nothing he does in that gym that is not beneficial to what his aim is. It doesn't matter whether you like bodybuilding or not. It's just the concept of I'm not going to do anything that is not productive. Everything he did, his whole life was surrendered just to that one process. Well, the spiritual and creative process is exactly the same. To get to an optimum level, we've got to reduce everything so that there is nothing superfluous. You know, because 20% of what we get comes from 80%. 80% of what we get comes from 20% of what we do. So why don't we get rid of the 80% that isn't working?
Yeah.
People say we don't really know what that is, but we do. We all know what it is. We all know what we should and shouldn't do. We all know what we should and shouldn't think. When I had my first epiphany, I knew exactly what to eat, what not to eat. I knew exactly what to say and what not to say. I knew exactly when to push and when to yield. That truth is there available to everybody. It's just covered by the loud ambitions, the ostentation, the need to be noticed, the need to be followed, the need to be big, the need to be skinny, you know, the need to have a mate, to have a girlfriend or a boyfriend, the need to have more money, the need to be noticed, the need to be validated. All of those things are egoic. If we just allow those to strip back, who we are, what we are, our own certainty is so beautiful, you won't need anything else. And my life is constantly about expanding in order to contract, contracting in order to expand. I had 2 conversations in the space of a few days. One was with Uri Geller. I spoke to Uri Geller on the phone. He was a friend of a friend, and he was working on my friend's film. And this is some years ago. And I said to him, what do you think I should do to improve, Uri? And he said, Jeff, you need to expand. And then I did a meditation with Gandhi, and I said, Mr. Gandhi, what do you think I should do in order to improve? He said, Jeff, you need to make yourself small. They're both saying the same thing. So if I make my ego small, my conscious net is going to expand. If I start practicing meditation and kindness and congruence, that will expand my conscious net. My consciousness will expand. And as my consciousness expands, it leaves no room, makes the body inhospitable for the ego. So as I expand consciousness, my ego contracts. As I contract my ego by denying it all of the excesses, you know, the gossip, the anger, the envy, the greed, all that kind of stuff, overeating, over drinking, overthinking. Once I deny the ego that, I make my body inhospitable for this energy, and it shrinks. It's not going to stay around if it's not being fed. It's going to be subjugated. So the ego will become small, consciousness will become big. And then you're working from a place of certainty. And certainty is beautiful. And certainty is beautiful because it's the voice of God, because it's coming through thinking, the saying, and the doing are all aligned. They're all aligned to one thing, which is receiving in order to share. Some of the people I mentor, I'm only mentoring a couple of people. So if there's anybody out there, I'm not looking to mentor people. So I'm not fishing. So please don't ask. I've got 2 Uchideshi that I've been looking after for a long time. I've got a few people around me who I've looked after who are very, very wealthy. But they are people that know what to do with their wealth. They know why they've got the wealth. Some of them are trying to reduce it because it's hampering their spiritual growth. And other people know that they have been brought onto this earth, and their dharma is to have money in order to facilitate filmmakers to have, you know, I think it was Thomas Merton said when he was living in a monastery, Thomas Merton was a great spiritual ascetic, And he said when he was living in this monastery, he said a couple of the people who financed the monastery, big businessmen, lived on the outside of the monastery in their own little places. And he said some of them were more spiritual than the people in the monastery. So them having money wasn't wrong if it's their dharma, but they didn't have money to be noticed or to accumulate. They had money because they sensed.
Can help people
So
more.
like the guy that ran Hard Rock Cafe, he gave Sai Baba £100 million to build a hospital in India. So he may have accumulated that for all the wrong reasons, but once he got there, he just thought, is this it? You know, because he still wasn't complete. And he met Sai Baba and he gave him the money to create a hospital that's still there now. So it's not saying that, you know, I don't know what your dharma is. I don't know what anybody's dharma is. I only know that you have a dharma, and it may involve working with money and material things, or it may involve, you know, living in a hut somewhere and just painting all day. And that's the key, is to find that. And the only way we can find that is to locate our authentic self. The ego will fight hammer and tongs to stop you from finding that authentic place, because the moment you find the authentic place, that is the death of the ego. Not in a literal sense of it dying, but in the sense that the ego is subjugated, the ego is converted, transformed into whatever your dharma is. So the key is to find out who you are. And once you find out who you are, you find out what your dharma is. When I say dharma, what your purpose is.
Yeah.
Once you found your purpose, then you go, oh, if that's my purpose, then I'm going to try and get rid of everything in my life that isn't that purpose. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. So one of the things to go through with that one, mate, is I guess I was going to touch on love. So once you're trying to find that creative energy and you're in that thing and you're saying, don't be distracted by the things that are coming along, how do you know, do you know what I'm trying to say? So how, you can't, there's going to be an occasion where you're going to want to find someone to spend time with, right? Or you want to fall in love, or so how do you know that's the right thing and it's not going to, does it just fit the process? Does it just fall in line with what happens with the rest of your life? Or is it something that you kind of like have to make an allowance for?
Well, it's all about spiritual discernment. You know, I've been with Sharon for 30 years. She'll be my best teacher. She'll bring out my strengths and she'll show me where my weaknesses are just by being in her proximity. And I'll be her best teacher. So she's in my life for that reason. She's not overtly spiritual like I am. She's much more grounded, but she's a good spiritual counsel for me. So it's one of the gifts of, there are several gifts that come as you start to develop spiritually. And one of them is the divine sword, which we talk about, and the divine CEO. And that's about discernment. It's about knowing when something is good for you, when it's not good for you, knowing when it's a lure to the ego, knowing when it's necessary for the soul. So we learn to know the difference between right and wrong. We know when to push and yield, because spiritual discernment will tell us, but we have to be quiet to do that. So repentance, or this idea of returning to the center, being in the still center, means that we've got to bypass all of the parts that are outside of the center. Once we're in that spiritual center, and there's a quietness, we are able to develop acoustic clarity. So the voice of the intuition, the creative voice, is quiet. It might just come in an image. The seed might come as a tiny voice. It might just come as a little vision. But if your consciousness is busy with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 100 different personalities and ambitions, you won't hear that. It's like trying to hear a clock tick when you've got 10 radios on. So we have to switch all the radios off so that the ticking clock of intuition is clear. So we call this acoustic clarity. So we start to hear intuition, we start to have visions, and we have the courage to follow them. So the discernment will tell you, this is the right person, this is the wrong person, this is the right deal, this is the wrong deal. I've turned down massive deals with massive money because I've just known they're wrong. I've actually been repelled from them. I've been spat out because they're wrong. And I've not wanted to listen to it when I was younger because I needed the money. I took deals when I knew they were wrong because I thought, well, I can bring my magic to them, but I need the money. So my intuition was corrupted and compromised because I needed to make money, and I didn't trust that the process would bring the money. So we develop acoustic clarity, and we develop HD vision, so that when we see people, when we see things, we can see their masks, we can see their agenda. We can, if we're at a real centered place, we can sometimes hear their thinking, and we can sometimes see what they're seeing. And and what happens as well as you get a spiritual center is that often you're around people and they will say things that they're thinking that they don't really want to say, and it tells you who they are and what they are and where their agenda is. So some of the gifts of, they call it the 7 gifts of the Holy Dove, but they're basically just siddhas. So it's just like a clarity. So we're certainly able to see and hear and sense and intuit things that are there for anybody to see, but we can't see them because we have so many veils in front of us. So we've got to learn to see from beyond these veils and see through it and go, oh, this guy is just full of agenda. This girl is just looking for a coattail. You know what I mean? Or this guy is not congruent. Or this person isn't ready to work with me yet, because they still can't even control their own body weight. They still can't stop themselves gossiping outside Costa on a Friday afternoon. They still can't stop themselves watching sexual pornography. They still can't stop themselves from accessing violent films or having violent thoughts. So they don't know who they are yet. They don't recognize that they're not even their own. They're not that they've got control of their thinking, but they haven't recognized yet that they're not their thinking. That, that's not who they are. Thinking doesn't come from us. Thinking is a separate area. It's a separate realm, and we choose whether we engage thinking or not. So eventually you're able to sit in the center and watch the crowds of voices. And so in a long-winded way, I'm saying that you get spiritual discernment. And spiritual discernment will tell you what's right and wrong. And you may go against what spiritual discernment tells you, because the girl is pretty, or because the money's too much to turn down. But the moment you stop listening to intuition, you fall out of the center. You fall out of alignment. So while you basically, you've switched to radio on and you can't hear the clock quite so clearly now. And then if you don't take the decision again, another radio comes on and you can't hear the clock even more. And then suddenly there's 2 radios and a telly on, and you're no longer able to observe or witness. You are overrun with the voices, and they are all you, and you're so angry because you think you've done well because you've got 100,000 followers, but you feel like a dwarf by that guy because he's got 1 million, and he thinks he's doing really well because I've got 1 million followers. But then he looks at Katy Perry and she's got 120, so he feels like a gnat, And so, I remember one guy getting an Oscar, and he's like, I've got an Oscar. It's an Oscar. And then he sees a guy that's got 3, and he goes, oh God, he's got 3, and I've had to share mine as well. So it's not real. I remember one guy saying 2 BAFTAs, but it just didn't sate him. It didn't feel enough because it wasn't 5, or it wasn't an Oscar nomination. But because it's all external. We can be very creative, but it can be corrupted by the need for all those things. And there is not enough. There is not enough. I remember talking to a drug dealer once when I was trying to research a film I was writing about drugs. And this was a guy that was putting 50 million out of the country every 6 months to be laundered.
50 million.
He said, the hardest thing for me, Jeff? The hardest thing for me? He said, I have to, every time his little kid would come and collect a carry bag full of money, he said, I have to buy a new head bag to put the money in. And I resent having to pay for that bag. So this guy who's, turning over 100 million on drugs each year, but resented spending 10 quid on a fitness bag. And he said to me, this phone kept ringing. He said to me, once I've got my paper straight, he said, I'm going to get rid of this phone because it's driving me mad. And he goes, who am I kidding? He said, there's not enough money in the world to satisfy me. I'm never going to get my paper straight. Now, he's currently doing 2 life sentences. You can't get a letter to this lad without it going through 20 people. His biggest worry, his biggest regret, he said, is that he'll never see his mum alive again, because she won't come to the prison. It's a cat A. He won't come to the prison, and he won't be able to get out. And this is a guy, I knew him from my time on the doors. I knew him before he went down that path, and he was a very, very beautiful guy, very generous guy, and just got lured into this pornography, you know. But what I'm trying to say is that there is not enough accolades. There's not enough money. No, the beautiful wife won't be enough, because there'll be another part of you that thinks you want more. And, you know, the person you're personally training, you won't be able to stop looking at her. You won't be able to stop thinking about her. You'll be having sex with your girlfriend, and it'll be her in your mind. So there's all sorts of betrayals start to happen if you don't know who you are. You know, I mean, I don't know, you count on one hand the people who I know who they are. You don't meet them very often. So the exciting thing for me, John, is to find out who you are. And it's not a search. We're not on a search. We're just going to reveal who we are, because he's already there. By removing all the parts that aren't ours, that aren't us. You know.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? It's a matter of revelation rather than searching.
I guess people always try and add, aren't they? Whereas if you just take things away that aren't serving you, you're left with...
Which is what you teach, I would imagine. I don't know you. This is the first time we've spoke, but I can see you're in shape and your fitness is your life. So that's what you'll show people. You'll tell them what to remove in order to reveal the physique that's already there, really. You say, this is what you remove, this is what you add. And it's very simple stuff if you do, you know, if you're doing it properly. It's not rocket science.
Interestingly, though, again, to use that as a sort of analogy, people never stick with the process, and they fall off the wagon. And again, same thing with this. Really, it's like people think, oh, you know, they have like, it gets to a sticking point, or and it's a bit like training, right? If you don't train, every time you don't train, whether you have a bad day or something like that, that's where you never get anywhere. It's like days that you really do struggle, you really find that things aren't working for you. That's when you've got to carry on turning up.
Yeah. That's when you find out who you are at the back of it all. Yeah, people come back, don't they, and go, well, that hasn't really worked for me. Well, let me have a look at what you've been eating. Well, there's wine on that list and beer. That wasn't on my list. Oh, well, there might, you know, as soon as you break the process, it's not going to work. Very few people want to do it. And if we want to prove to people it's possible, then we have to be the living example of it. To be the living example of it, we have to be aware of our agenda, our own agenda.
So do you generally reflect and go through these processes, Jeff? Do you know what I mean? So it's, you know, if you ever come to a point where you're like, I feel like something's not quite aligned, are you able to look back and be like, okay, well, I've done this, and this, and this. This hasn't served me, so I need to take that out.
Yeah. If someone runs into the back of my car, the first thing I ask myself is, where am I out of alignment? I don't look at them and go, it's their fault. I look at it and I go, I remember someone running into the back of my XKR outside my mother-in-law's house. I was inside, I wasn't in the car. And she ran into the back of it like it was invisible and wrecked the back of the car. The first thing I thought was, where am I out of alignment? And I went back and looked at where I was out of alignment and found it. And I knew that she ran into my car and it was my fault. That's the level of scrutiny I put myself under. Now, I don't go to the insurance guy and say, listen, you don't need to pay out on this car, because metaphysically speaking, it was my fault. That girl won't have seen that car because it was part of my own karma, and it was the universe trying to nudge me. I don't do that. I'm working by the rules of society as much as I can. But in my own mind, I go, I'm out of alignment. Then I'll do the rigor. I'll do an internal dialectic, a conversation with myself or with my wife or with somebody else, and find out where I'm out of alignment. And normally if someone's run into the back of my car or there's a big incident like that, it's because I'm not listening. If it's a big incident, it means I've had a few shots across the bow. I've been warned and I haven't listened. But once you get to a certain level of spiritual development, it becomes excruciating to be out of alignment. It becomes so painful that you don't fall out of alignment very often. And if you do fall out of alignment, you redress it quickly. You do fall out. You might fall out on a daily basis, but you redress it very quickly because it becomes excruciating. You know, it becomes like, if you look at the tungsten element, the tungsten filament in a light, tungsten is tempered so that it can connect the positive and negative.
Charges.
Yeah, they call them positive and negative poles. It connects the two and creates light, but it's tempered, and it's inside a vacuum packed bulb. So the bulb is vacuumed, so it's got a hermetic seal. But if the bulb broke and the air, the oxygen rushed in, the filament would burn out very quickly. It would just pop because it can't mix with oxygen. So that's what happens to us if we fall out of alignment at a certain level. It burns and we feel like we're going to blow out. So you get to this is what they call it a divine shock. So at a certain level, you have to keep that hermetic seal. You have to keep yourself in that place of center all the time, because if you fall out of alignment, it is absolutely excruciatingly painful. At a lower level, when you're still developing, you won't feel it quite so much, because it's absorbed by all of the different personalities. It's like a shock absorber. As you strip away those personalities, and you've just got the soul, which would be the allegorical filament, this tungsten that connects the negative and positive to create light. As you start to get to the raw soul, it becomes more and more vulnerable to any kind of exposure to excess. So we have to keep ourselves in a vacuum state, and we have to not break that. And if you do break it, you feel it so quickly, you feel it so hard, and it doesn't go until you feel it again. If you get a chance to read The Divine CEO, I go into great detail in there about the divine shock and how excruciating it is, and how you have to very quickly locate where the puncture is, and seal it again, because the soul burns up very fast when it's exposed to excess. I've had a few spiritual visions about this, and I understand it really well. So it encourages you to stay centered. And to stay centered, Buddhism, they call it the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. They say refuge or return or repentance, which means coming back to the center, is a combination of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, which means the teacher, the teaching, and the community around you. So at the moment, you've got the teaching that you do, you've got the environment of people that you teach. You're in a fitness environment, and you've got your purpose within that. Well, you'll have your own teacher there. So in order to stay in the center, you have to be in that community all the time. You have to have the teacher, you have to have the teaching, and you have to have the community around you. If you don't have those, it's very easy to fall off the wagon, to start eating wrong, to start thinking wrong. Spiritually, it's no different. Spiritually and creatively, it's the same. We have to have this combination of absolutely being absorbed in the teaching all the time. So again, if you look at Dorian again, he's a good example because he's one of the very few people that was absolute in what he did. His whole life was orchestrated around the bodybuilding. That's all he did, nothing else. He just trained, he ate, he slept. His whole life was that's how he was able to go to a level that was so high that when he walked into a room, he'd automatically won, even though he wasn't politically aligned to anybody in the bodybuilding world, even though he hadn't got sponsors in America, even though he wasn't in favor. He would go in, and he was so far and above everybody else that they had to award him the Mr. Olympia. I think he got it 7 times, because I think there would have been a riot if they didn't, because he was so clearly higher and above everybody else. But that's because he was absolute in what he did. So he had the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. So he had the teaching, he had the teacher, he had the teaching. The teacher was the most current information on bodybuilding, which for him was intuitive. He had the environment, which is all of his friends, all they did was lived and breathed bodybuilding. And he had all 3 elements of it in the one place. So he lived it. So when you go into the spiritual realm, it's got to be exactly the same, or the creative realm. Or if you're in the fitness realm now, if you want to kind of excel, you have to completely surrender yourself to what it is that you're doing.
Yeah.
But eventually all of it will lead you back to the same thing, which will be, who am I? Yeah.
It's a really, really, really thought-provoking conversation, Jeff. Thank you so much. The other thing that I wanted to go into, mate, was this is quite a big topic, especially around things at the moment. And you talk about it quite a lot in your book, which is mental health.
Yeah.
Would you mind kind of going into some of the things that you suffered from, or, I mean, you talk about depression a fair bit, things you didn't realize what it was at the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's really starting to come to a point now where people have really started to open up and talk about it more, and it's becoming less of a stigma and more of a acceptable thing to talk about and understand, right?
Yeah.
And I've done a fair bit, just help trying to raise money for charities that I feel like do some amazing work. But it'd just be good to have, again, a conversation from someone who's obviously done a lot, and it's good for people to know that everybody suffers from it of some form or another.
Yeah.
And how have you managed that now? And do you still feel like you have times where it kind of rears its head, or is that kind of like, do you feel like you close that box, I guess?
Well, the depression is a call from the spirit. So it's saying that you're not in alignment. Somewhere in your life, you're not in alignment. Something in your life, in your marriage, in your relationship, in your work, wherever you are in your life. For me, the creative spirit was calling me when I was younger. I didn't have the discipline, and I didn't have the belief it was possible. So this depression that came up, which I thought was a harbinger of doom, was actually a messenger of hope. It was saying, we're going to keep coming up. And if you don't process us, if you don't individuate us, if you don't look at what we've got to say, because it was a letter from my soul. And I kept going, don't want to read that. Don't want to look at that. Because it was pressed in and pushed down and depressed, it created all of the exterior stuff. So what most people do with any kind of depression is that they medicate it, or they self-medicate it, or they run away from it, and they see it as an enemy. Whereas I see it as a messenger. This energy, if it comes up, this creative energy that comes to us pure, if it comes through negative filters, or if it isn't processed right, it will become corrupted. And it will take the shape of our concepts, of our beliefs. So if I'm bringing it through a negative filter, it's going to go out into the world as a negative thing. So if I bring this pure energy through a negative concept, that concept will create a form, and that form will have an aspect. So what starts off as a beautiful natural energy can come through a negative concept, create a form and an aspect that becomes my enemy. So we make an enemy out of depression because we don't understand it. But if we have the courage to turn into it and to look at it and go, okay, you're here. This is what happened to me. I suffered with it all my youth. And then one day I just had this bolt of inspiration. I could say it's a communication with the soul, where I just thought, I'm not having this anymore. This is the last time you're going to come in my house and kick down the doors and take over my life. And so I decided to confront everything I was afraid of. And the moment I decided to do that, I had the idea to confront all the things I was afraid of, draw a pyramid, write all of my fears down on the pyramid and confront them systematically, dismiss them, intercourse with them. Instead of running away from them, I turned into them. Instead of cowering under this feeling of depression, I actually looked at it and thought it's actually a neutral energy if I take away all the concepts. As much as it might feel uncomfortable, even that is a concept. It's just if you strip away all the concepts from fear, from depression, from anxiety, it's just a hot flush of energy. But it's still the body talking to you. My body was saying to me, wake up. You have a creative dharma. You're in the world to do something. And you can't do that while you've got all of this damage, while you've got all of these separate personalities. So it encouraged me to turn in and look at it and to read the letter. And that's really what I did. And that energy, like I said, if it comes to a negative concept, it's going to come out with the form and aspect of something negative. But if I'm able to see it as fundamentally, you know, like if you look at the light coming through a movie projector, when it comes through, it's just pure light. When it hits the film, and it goes onto the screen, it projects all of the images that are on the film. So, but the light itself isn't a horror film. The light isn't a romantic comedy. The light isn't a war film. You know, the light isn't a pornography film. The light is just pure, but it will take the shape of the filters it comes through. So that's our cognitions, our perceptions, our conceptualizations, our beliefs. We can change them. We can change the film. But most people don't know that there's a light. They don't know that there's a filter. They don't know that it's projecting onto a film. So they spend most of their life trying to fix the film of their life from the level of the movie screen. Right. But if you didn't like the horror film at the pictures, you wouldn't go to the screen and try and change it at the level of the screen, because it wouldn't work, because it's just an illusion. It's just a collection of light coming through filters that forms the story on the screen. If we want to change the film, we don't need to change the light. The light is perfect. We can't blame God. God comes through us perfectly. He's beautiful, but he can only make the shape of the perceptions and cognitions that we have. They can be changed. So depression is saying you're living too small. There is a spirit here that wants to come through, but your perceptions, your conceptualizations, they're too small. They need to be challenged. You don't think it's possible to be creative. You don't think it's possible to give up a day job and be a creative. You don't think you're too afraid to do that because you've got all of these implanted, conditioned conceptualizations. So it's saying challenge them. So that's what I did. Instead of turning away from the depression, I intercourse with it. Ushba, the founder of Aikido, said that we have to absorb 99% of it before it gives up its tendency. The moment we absorb all of it, we go, okay, do your worst. Let's have a look at you. You're blackmailing me. You're threatening me. You're saying to me, my name's depression. I'm going to kick down the door. I'm going to rape your life. And I'll probably see you again next week or tomorrow. And you can do nothing about it. I'm in your life forever. Now I've found you once. I'm going to find you again and again. But when you don't care whether he finds you, when you say, come to me again, because when you come to me again, I'm going to have a new perception. I'm going to have a new conceptualization. I'm going to have new cognitions. And when you come to me, there'll be no dark filters. They'll be gone. I'm going to churn that up, and I'm going to make something beautiful out of you. So I'm going to turn that oil into light. That will become the oil for my lamp. So I started to challenge all of my conditioning, and that took quite a long time. I did mostly through writing, but also, you know, I said, you know, you don't confront a fear by just sitting in your front room, do you? Arjuna didn't overcome his fear. Arjuna was the prince of the world who went into battle to win his kingdom back and collapsed with fear. But he didn't overcome his fear from a classroom, John. He overcame his fear in the battlefield. And that's the most difficult thing. So we have to do the work. We have to go, okay, what is it in my life that I don't want to look at? I remember talking to one girl, and she rang me up and she was crying, and she was deeply depressed, and she was deeply happy. She was living with a violent guy. She was in the wrong life. And I just said, why do you stay there? She said, you don't understand, Jeff. I have a 10-bedroom house. I can't just leave. You know what I mean? I've got a job. I've got a wife. I'm on 7 figures. I'm on 6 figures, or whatever it is. You don't understand, Jeff. I've got a company car with this. You don't understand, Jeff. You know, my wife won't. She won't want me to leave that job. But it's nothing. I said to her, what the fuck has that got to do with anything? A 10-bedroom house, but you're in hell. People would want to rent hell out and would want to live in hell and rent your house out to their worst enemies. It's that bad. But she couldn't leave because she couldn't let go of this feeling that I've got a 10-bedroom house or whatever it is. I know guys that can't let go of it because they're earning 7 figures, or they can't let go of it because they feel as though they need all those things, or, you know. So we recognize that when I start to change me, if I change my perception, of course, that's going to affect my wife. That's going to affect my kids. It's going to affect my friends. What are my friends going to think when I go from Jeff the factory worker to Jeff the book writer on Richard and Judy? You know, it affects your whole life.
The scary thing about that is because you a certain way, you've attracted those certain people into your life at that time. So when you change, it's almost
you're not that person anymore.
And those people aren't going to be.
Are they going to want to be with you? Yeah. Are they going to be wanted with the guy? Are they going to want to be with the guy that doesn't want to drink anymore? That doesn't want to gossip? Are they going to want to be with the guy that doesn't want to sit and watch violent films?
So I guess it's not being. It's. I guess it comes back to the fact that you can't. Like you shouldn't be afraid of starting again with things. In some aspects,
you should be afraid, but you shouldn't be afraid of being afraid.
Yeah.
Fear is part of it. It always starts with fear. We're not going to bypass that, but what we have to do is we have to absorb 99% of the fear. Ushabat is a great guy to look at. He was sitting in his singularity all the time. He was a very dynamic teacher, but he trained with the Debucci, Anusabura Debucci, was a spiritual prophet. At one point he was in front of a firing squad. He was seconds away from being killed, and they said he was more afraid than anybody else. But he literally lived it. He literally absorbed all of the things he was afraid of until they dissipated. In other words, he challenged the mores. He challenged the conditioning, and he created new cognitions. He created cleaner filters. But we can't expect to change our filters without and think it won't affect our wife. I had one friend of mine who he just couldn't make the shift because he wanted his mum and dad to understand. This is a very beautiful man that I was working with. He wanted his mum and dad to understand why he was changing. And I said, it's nothing to do with your mum and dad. You want them to come with you, but they can't. You just have to be certain that you want to change. And if they're right, they will come with you. Another guy said he wanted his girlfriend to understand how he was feeling so that he could, so that she could come with him. I said, well, you're going to change and she might not want to come with you. You can't take any of that into consideration. You go through this narrow gate on your own. That's what you do. And hopefully some people come with you. You don't leave anybody behind, but not everybody will take the journey with you. So I've probably lost 99% of my social circle with the changes I've made in my life.
So if you walk the path, I guess people can come with you, and you take them on the journey with you, or you don't. But you should still go for it anyway.
You've got to follow your dharma, because that's what Charles Handy said. He calls it proper selfishness. It means that we do what is right for our dharma, and even if people don't understand it or appreciate it, we do it because it's the right thing to do. And if we're working from truth, then it will eventually be good for me. It'll be good for you. It'll be good for everybody. Because suddenly I'm if I'm meant to be a piston, I'm not trying to be a fancy wheel arch. If I'm meant to be a fancy wheel arch, I'm not trying to be a steering wheel. I know what my position in the vehicle is, and I live that position. So we've got to be congruent with who we actually are. And mostly people are depressed because they're not congruent with who they are. And that's the soul saying to them, you're not congruent. You're not living out what you're here to live out. And it's because you've become trapped by the money, or you become trapped by the partner that you're with, or you become trapped by the accumulation that your work gives you. We've got to be prepared to strip it right back. Like I said, as an allegory, if you're going to work with people who want to change their physique, they've got to be prepared to let go of all of those elements of themselves that want to have more wine and want to overeat and don't want to get up and train every day. There'll be a lot of people that are trying to avoid the burn. They're trying to find a physique without any of the burn. So you have to tell them, in order to get what you want, you have to let go of comfort. There's no growth there. So that's what depression is for me. Mental health is when we're out of center. Fear is a sign that we are out of our center. It's an alarm call. It means there's a burglar in the house. Then we listen to the alarm and we scrutinize life and go, where am I out of alignment? I know I'm out of alignment because I'm earning 7 figures, but I just really want to paint. I just really want to be a painter. You who's watching this now, you just really want to be a writer, but you're stuck in your 6-figure job. You over there who really, really, really just want to be an artist, but you're in a joint mortgage with your husband and you can't afford that house without it, and you don't want to let go of the house, so you want to be an artist and you want to keep the house, and you don't want to let go of the house because how's that going to affect your partner? How's that going to affect him? It can be heartbreaking to follow your dharma, because like I said, we have accumulated things around us that may not want to take that journey with us.
So how does it work, Jeff, in the sense of like, because obviously if you follow your own pathway, some people consider that selfish. Is that a thing? Or is that just the fact that it's more...
Of course it's selfish, but it's proper selfish.
For the right reasons?
Yeah, Charles Handy calls it proper selfishness. We're following our own dharma. Other people think you're selfish because you're not doing what they want you to do. You're not towing the party line. I had a guy say to me on the phone once, I really just want to be an artist. But he said, I have to teach. I have a responsibility to teach. He said, children need to be taught. That's my responsibility. I've got to put that in front of my call to art. And I just said, but what are you teaching your kids? To settle. You're teaching your kids to be inauthentic. You're teaching your kids to be something that you're not. That you're not doing those kids any favors. You're lying to those kids. Because what you're doing is you're saying you have to settle for something that's not true. I said, your best way to teach those kids is to say to them, my whole life I've wanted to be an artist. So I'm going to leave this teaching to somebody whose dharma is to teach, because there'll be other people who all they want to do is teach. Their raison d'etre is to teach. So it doesn't matter how worthy the job is. If it's not aligned with my dharma, then I'm in the wrong place, and there's no truth there.
Yeah.
So our responsibility is to find out what it is we're meant to do, and then do our very best to find the courage, and step by step head towards that. And we pray, of course, that people will come with us. I've been with Sharon 30 years, and she typed out notes from a factory floor. At one point, she was crying. She said, I'm wondering whether you've lost your mind. She said, because everybody's fell out of our life and there's only me left. Am I next? We would laughed about it because she was just kind of saying, I see what your dharma has done to your life, but there's a tremendous amount of joy in my life because I just write and I study and I have conversations like this. This is my life, and I've got rid of everything in my life just so I can do this. But that, that isn't, not everybody. My first wife was massively affected by my ambition just to be a professional martial artist, or to train more. She was massively affected. She was really threatened, and I loved her very much. But my ambition to be authentic devastated her.
I guess this is what I'm trying to just clear out into my head a little bit. So it's kind of like, it's weird because I guess everyone's responsible for themselves, aren't they? And it's only social conditions, I guess, where people are like, you have to be responsible for other people. Everyone's responsible for their own happiness. But I guess when you find the person that is able to follow your journey with their journey, or their journey and your journey just tend to match up, and each doing your thing, that's it, I guess, isn't it? That's when you figure out what you met the people.
Well, if you look at it as a cake mix, you don't do any favors, or you don't do any good to the cake if you try to be an ingredient that you're not, because the social mores say you should be that ingredient. You are one ingredient, and you need to find what that ingredient is and be it. And if everyone finds the right ingredient, we'll have a perfect cake. So lots of people are trying to be an ingredient that they're not. When they try to be an ingredient that they're not, they're not serving anybody. They're not helping anybody. It's not coming from a place of love. It's not coming from a place of authenticity. It's got to come from a place of love. You could be doing it could be a job that looks very, very respectable. You could be running a charity, but if it's not coming from a place of love, it's not going to make any difference, because you're in the wrong place. We've got to find out what we're meant to do here, what our part in the divine plan is, and then act that out, even if the whole world tells us we're wrong. If we know it's the right thing to do, we do it. But we don't get rid of anybody. I've never got rid of anybody, but not many people have stayed with me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't choose to come with you. It's that there's a big difference between letting somebody go and them not choosing to come. With my first wife, all I wanted to do was train with me and be with me. But the more ambitious I got, the more I immersed myself into the training, the worse she got. And when I ended up with Sharon, You know, she just gave me full rein to train, and she's continued to do that, even though my path has massively threatened her at times, because she doesn't understand it always. She doesn't understand, you know, the messages I get, and it can sound like you're a little bit mad. But she's trusted it. She trusts me. Even if she doesn't believe in God, she trusts me. And then she sees the results in our life. She sees what happens. So it doesn't mean that you'll lose people, that you have to dump people. It just means that you have to follow your path. Yeah. Those that are meant to follow it with you will do that. And those that are meant to fall away will fall away. And that's the price you pay for authenticity.
I get that. That's it though, isn't it? That's the thing that people get confused with, because when people walk away, they feel like, oh, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or it's something to do with me, or.
Well, otherwise, what are you going to do, John? You're going to go around and to all of your closest friends and family and ask them for permission. This is what I want to do. I want to make sure that you're all okay with this before I do it. You will never move. You'll never shift, because your path will greatly threaten them. Because the moment you open up an aperture towards your truth, for a moment, they will see their truth. They will see their own authenticity, and that frightens them.
But sorry to interrupt, Jeff. I wanted to as when you obviously growing up as a kid, you're told, you know, your parents know what's right for you. This is how it is. The adult's always right. So it's very difficult sometimes, I think, to be able to look past that. And although your parents might know best for you at a certain point in time,
yeah.
You have to find that point where you suddenly realize you have to break away from it. And I think that is sometimes quite a scary process. Do you know what I mean? It's very hard to sort of look past that and be like, actually, I can do this just because you think I can, or you don't have the belief system to do it. And it's nothing against your parents, like they're doing the best they can, what they know. But you know, for people that are in that situation or that are having those disagreements, how would you suggest, or how would you say to people to manage that? Because again, it's like, you're going to grow through the experience, I guess, but do you have to just keep trying things and keep reflecting back on what do I actually really want? And that, and then go from there.
Keep in the center. Well, when Arjuna's in the battlefield, Arjuna Pandava is the prince of the world. He's in the Bhagavad Gita. He's in the battlefield, and he's gone to win his kingdom back. His kingdoms have been stolen by his corrupt cousins. He steps into the battleground, and he looks across in front of him, and in the enemy lines, he sees cousins, he sees teachers, he sees brothers. In the distance, he sees his parents. He sees all of his influences, and he says, this is why he loses his courage. He says to Krishna represents consciousness. He's in the chariot with him. He says, I can't go in and fight thee. What's the point of having a kingdom if I'm going to lose my friends and my teachers and my parents? What's the point? And he said, your dharma is just to go into this battleground and win your kingdom back. It's not to concern yourself with them. Their karma has already unfolded. They've got their own path. Your job is to find the truth and set an example and give them a light. So he's basically saying, you know, the Gita is basically saying that you have to kill all of your old influences. A good starting point. People give you what they've got, but what are you going to do? Just live another version of your mum and dad's life? They've edited your life up to this point, but now it's your job. So we've got to be prepared. And this was Arjuna's biggest stumbling point, was that he didn't want to disappoint his teachers. He didn't want to go to war he didn't want to kill his cousins, even though they were corrupt. So in other words, all of these were influences. And Krishna was saying to him, they only exist in your mind. They are only perceptions implanted in your mind by people who may have been well-meaning, but who have given you the wrong information. So you have to kill those perceptions. You have to kill those cognitions. You have to kill those conceptualizations. And you have to look at your path. And this is your path. This is your dharma. You have to live it. So we can no longer live by, basically Krishna said to him, you are elevated. We're no longer living by societal rules. We're living by dharma, living by, you know, your own authentic path. You have a path to follow, and you've got to follow it. And that means eschewing all of that. It means being prepared to let go of your teachers. It means being prepared, you know, like Carlos Castaneda, when he's training with Don Juan Matus. Don Juan Matus says to him, you've got to kill your personal history. You've got to wipe your personal history clean. Harry Potter What do they do when they go up, when they go to fight, when they're building up to the fact to fight with Voldemort, the ego figure? What do? They have to destroy their personal history. Harmony has to go and wipe her parents' memory of her. They have to be prepared to lose brothers, to lose sisters, to lose family in order to defeat the ego. It's just Harry Potter is just a massive allegorical tale about winning our kingdom back, winning our authentic self. So we have to wipe the history clean. Now, look, I have a great relationship still with my mum. My dad is dead, but I have a really close relationship with her. But I don't go to my mum. I don't go to my mum for advice on what my dharma is. I go to God. I go inwards. I don't come outwards. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So otherwise, if I listen to the people around me, I'll be living their version of how they think I should live, which is basically a way of keeping them safe. They don't want me to do anything that's threatening to them. You lose 95% of your social circle just when you give up alcohol. I gave it up just as an exercise. Lost my best friend and lost most of my social circle because suddenly you're sat in a bar with strangers.
Yeah.
You go in with your friend and 2 drinks later, you don't know who you're talking to. And he doesn't like it because he doesn't know who you are, because he's used to you having a drink, and you don't like it because you see this guy's got 10 personalities now that he's got a drink in him. And I liked him when I had a drink in me because I had 10 personalities. I don't like him now. I can't be in this company. So you have to be prepared to lose all that. You have to be prepared for them to attack you. You have to be prepared for them to not like you. You have to be prepared for them to say that you're selfish, that you're wrong, that you've lost your way. I had my top students, people I love, and family members go on the internet and start a hate campaign against me because I was following the path of love. And they didn't understand it. They didn't understand that I was getting rid of the violence in my life, and I was becoming a teacher to lots of people because that was what my Dharma was asking me to do. And they were so affronted by it. They set out, at one point there was a whole web page dedicated to people hating me. But I have to take that into consideration and know that they don't know what they're saying. They don't understand. I love them anyway. It hasn't stopped me loving them. I've still got compassion. So we have to take that into consideration. We have to be prepared for everybody to say that we're wrong. We don't know what we're doing. That we've gone socks and sandals. That we've lost our bottle. That we're just doing it for the money. We're just doing it for the note. We're just doing it, because we want people to like us. We have to be prepared for all that. We have to be prepared. I think it was Mother Teresa said, people will hate you for it, but you've got to love them anyway. I was once taken out of my body, John, when I was wide awake, lifted out of my body, taken through a cloud into a marketplace where someone was teaching, and I knew he was talking to me. And he said, you must go out and teach. You must go out and serve. People will hate you for it. Serve them anyway. People will attack you for it. Serve them anyway. People will call you a liar. People will say you've lost your way. Love them anyway. So, that's the business we're in. Otherwise, what we're going to do? Are we going to edit our life, based on what all of our friends do, which is what people basically do. I remember a guy saying to me once, "This new film of yours, does it have the word cunt in it?" And I said, "It does," but I said because it's in the vernacular of the story. It's about people that use that word as a term of endearment. It isn't no longer a word of conceptualized hate. It's a word of term of endearment. But I said, that's the language. He goes, I've got a very literary friend who wouldn't even go into the cinema if that word was going to be used. This guy was a journalist. I said, let me tell you then. Let me ask you this. I said, why don't you go around all of your friends and ask them for the words that they most hate and then deduct them from your vocabulary and see what you're left with? Nothing. You will have nothing authentic to say because you're edited by the fear of what your friends will think. I don't care what my friends think. I don't care what anybody thinks. I care what God thinks. I'm not saying that I'm not affected by it, John. I would be lying if I said I'm not affected. But my only care, even with my wife, I don't even care what my wife thinks, even though I love her very bones. I care what God thinks. And God acts as he's my intuition. That's my authentic intuition. And and I have to have that certainty. If I don't have that certainty, I'm constantly going to be edited by somebody, by everybody.
Yeah.
You know, if I compromise for anybody, I'm owned by everybody. So I know that's absolute, but this energy is absolute, and it calls for nothing more. But amongst that, you've still got to be open to take counsel from people, because sometimes you can hear the wrong voice, sometimes you can take the wrong advice, sometimes you can fall out of alignment. So you do still, even the saints, people like Columbia and Francis, even at the level of sainthood, still fell. They still needed spiritual counsel. It doesn't mean you can't make a mistake, but it means that you are not edited, you know, by other people. My job isn't to do what I want. My job is to do what God wants. My job isn't to serve you, John, or to the people that listen to this. My job is to serve God, and He will know where this needs to land and how it needs to land. And He knows when it needs to land. So I'm aware also that people will probably think that God is a guy in the sky with kind eyes and a beard, but I'm talking about an omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent energy that I am, and you are, we all are. When we pull away all the concepts, what the Buddha calls denotation, when we're freed from denotation by consciousness, we are everything. We're all of it. And that's what the Buddhists would call the clear view. So at the moment, we're all in the process of trying to get rid of the obscuration so we can see a clear view. And part of the obscurations is recognizing that fear is a concept, depression is a concept. As much as we know it hurts us, and as much as I'm not denying people suffering, but the idea is to challenge that, not to challenge it by covering it or smothering it or hiding from it or running from it or injecting something so that you can avoid it for a little bit, or swilling it to the bottom of your beer glass, you know, or putting it at the bottom of some obsession. It's about at some point turning into it and looking at it.
Face your fears.
Embracing it. Yeah. Yeah.
Jeff, that's been amazing. Wow. I've got a lot of stuff, mate, that I've written down just to take notes on and take away, and hopefully kind of piece together in my own mind. I feel like my brain's reeling, like, with so many good ideas and intentions and things. That it's been really, really amazing. I'm going to have to wrap it up there, mate, because I've got another call that I'll need to jump on at 11. But thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure, John.
Just for all of the knowledge and stuff. And it's what's really interesting again for me is the concepts and the way you put them across I guess it all kind of comes into the same thing of you have a belief system where you're just trying to be authentic to who you are, and trusting that process will put you in front of the right people and bring the right things to you.
Well.
And I just love that, mate. I think not being edited by people in a world where everyone's so worried and concerned, and it's even worse now. I mean, 10 years ago when you didn't have social media, or you didn't have, I mean, social media is great for the concepts and for the awareness it can bring with certain things, but it also brings this awareness where you can be connected to people across the world. So suddenly you're not just affected by 2 or 3 people that live down the street. You've got people in the world that are now having their opinion of what you're trying to create. And I think that's where humanity's just not quite caught up yet, is where people still trying to figure out how to manage that and maybe have like their boundaries up with those kind of people. I mean, I had a thing on Instagram the other day where I had some guy that was trolling me and giving me a load of grief, and it really affected me in a way that I didn't expect it to. It was a good thing for me to kind of go into and be like, why is that? And I think for me at the time, I was like, God, are you stepping out of your lane? Maybe I shouldn't be talking about some of this stuff. Like, and it actually was a point where I was like, actually, no, like, this person's clearly taken what I've said in the wrong context. That's not my responsibility to deal with that. Like, I know, and I just have to trust that I know what I'm trying to put across, how I meant it. And I mean, it was like, okay, maybe I could look at that in a slightly different way, but there's no point wasting your energy with that kind of drama. So
just work from the self, and we just need to, like I said, we've got to be true to our intuition. It's got to be way above, our peer group. There's no one within our peer group that can do that for us. We've got to turn in, and our conscience will be our guide, and our soul will be our teacher. It will all be, the teaching will come from a hidden realm, and the advice will come from a hidden realm. So it's just keeping authentic, and first of all, finding that and being really honest with yourself about what you're doing and why you're doing it. So, if the worst comes to worst and people are listening to this and it feels like too much information, just make sure everything comes from a place of kindness, working from a place of kindness.
Yeah.
And you won't go too far wrong.
Jeff, it's been amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, John.
I'll edit this all up and then send the links out and stuff and get in contact with. So who was the lady?
Gabriella. Yeah. If you've got my Instagram page, you send a private message. Just say, this is the details of an interview I've just done with Jeff, and any images you want to send her or any clips, whatever you want, and she'll put it on the page for us. So if you could do that, it would be great. And then I can share it with people as well.
Yeah. Oh, amazing, Jeff. Thank you so much. I'll drop you an email as well later on down the line, because I'll probably have some things that I'll just need to get straight and think over, and then just ask if that's okay. And come
remember,
back.
Yeah, of course. But remember what I said as well. If as much as you can, be your own, turn inwards. My answers are always going to be filtered through, my own life. But you've got to find it for yourself as well. So go away. If I've given you something that really intrigues you, imagine it's a seed. Within that seed, if you can unpack that seed yourself through your own process, all of whatever's in that seed of wisdom that you feel will unpack, and it will give you something that's authentic to John Mortimer. That's not my version of what I've got through my filters. Because what I've got should just act as intercessors and little seeds. So we can get a seed and we go, oh, that really felt that. We go away and we study that seed and we unpack it. So rather than continue to come back to people and end up making a guru out of them, we go in and we find our inner guru, and that's about doing the work. So you can always come to me for clarity, John, but if you really want something authentic and an original thought, you need to unpack the bits of wisdom that come through. Remember, that seed of wisdom that you've got is like an oak. It's like a seed. It's like a seed inside an acorn that has the potential for a 500-year, I don't know how many feet, 100-foot oak. And each oak tree has the ability in a lifetime to create another 1 million of those seeds.
I guess it's also just trusting.
So one seed that you unpack today, you can plant it, and it will create an edifice that will have the ability to create more and more seeds. In other words, the potential to unfold and to reveal is infinite, because 1 million oak trees, 1 million acorns is 1 million more seeds, which turns out to be 1 billion or 5 billion or whatever. It has no limit, so the key is to do the rigor, do the work. So rather than go, well, I don't know what that means, but I feel it, unpack it. Have a look at the book. That book will lead you on to other books. Have a look at the Divine CEO, and that will reference other books. And the unpacking comes from studying and from going inwards and going, what does this mean? I really want to understand this. I'm going to be talking to somebody next week and I can't articulate what it is I want to show. So I want to be able to say that to them. And that when you start thinking about other people, this energy will show you. They say that what they say in Judaism, the soul will teach you. So you'll have your own ordained teacher, and it will tell you exactly how to find the information, how to unfold it. And then you'll be able to deliver it in a way that is very unique to me, but very unique to you. Because the last thing you want to be is, like a version of me or a version of somebody else. We just want to be who we are. So then, like I said, what you unpack from this seed will be completely authentic to you. So the seed is the gift. Whatever you pick up is the gift, and then it's for you to unpack it. But if I can guide you with it, I'll happily do that.
It's been amazing, Jeff. Thank you very much.
You better jump off. It's nearly 11.
Lovely to meet you, mate. And thank you very much for your time again. Much, much appreciated. I look forward to seeing your works in the future.
Okay, Bab.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.